The Glock 22 was once synonymous with American law enforcement. For more than a decade, if you saw a Glock in a cop's holster, it was probably a full-size .40 caliber. Fast forward to today, and with the close of the caliber wars and the undisputed ascension of the 9mm as the king of semi-autos, the sun is starting to set on the mid-size .40, and with it, Glock's flagship pistol that chambers it. But the Glock 22 is still a fine pistol, and there are tons of them out there. And if you're thinking about pulling the trigger on getting one of your own, there's a lot you need to know. I'll tell you what I wish I knew earlier about them in this video. Before we dig in, please take a moment to consider signing up to become a channel member. Channel members get access to exclusive unlisted videos, downloadable content, and a lot of other great stuff we've got planned for the future. Our channel members help us make our content even better and reach an even wider audience of shooters and enthusiasts just like you. And for that, they have our thanks. Now, let's get down to business. Glock 22s are some of the most common pistols in the US. Before you dismiss the Glock 22 out of hand, you should consider that it is the single most common, and for a time, most popular pistol carried by American law enforcement at all levels. Hundreds and hundreds of individual police departments, great and small, federal agencies, and other groups and organizations that go forth armed chose the Glock 22 as the ideal service weapon. Much of this was due to marketing, as at the time the .40 was seen as the perfect compromise cartridge with a capacity that could rival a 9mm, but with better terminal ballistics. Supposedly. Today, and over the past 7 to 8 years, more and more agencies have been switching back to 9mm in one pistol or another. Part of this is due to the realization that most major handgun calibers are basically the same when it comes to terminal performance against people, but also the fact that .40 caliber guns require more maintenance and, in years past, used more expensive ammo with inflated budgets. Because of this sweeping shift away from the Glock 22 in law enforcement use, these guns are everywhere on the used market. Police surplus is a thing too, you know. Something to keep in mind because wherever you go in the US, there are bound to be Glock 22s there. If you need a proven, reliable, and powerful pistol that is really, really cheap, this is probably your best bet. These are the perfect Famine pistols. In a strange turn of events, with a mass migration away from the .40 by both civilians and law enforcement agencies, the cartridge has become dependably available during times of ammo shortage, panic buying, and speculation. Walk into any gun shop when a pro-gun control presidential candidate is running, or whenever civic uncertainty peaks, and you'll see disappear overnight 22 LR, 38 Special, 357 Magnum, 9mm, and 45 Auto. Even during the pandemic years here recently, all of my local shops had at least some .40 S&W in stock, and my contacts around the country reported the same by and large. This can certainly be a comfort for folks who want to insulate themselves against shortage without dropping a bundle of money on stockpiling it ahead of time. Combined with the sheer ubiquity of the Glock and the ocean of replacement and aftermarket parts that are out there, and this is one pistol that you'll dependably be able to keep barking even when times are tough. Glock 22s need frequent recoil spring replacement. Far and away, the most common error I saw committed, and still see committed, by owners of Glock 22s is deferring spring replacement, specifically the recoil spring. The .40 S&W might not be that much bigger or more potent than a 9mm in the grand scheme of things, but this is a high-pressure round that takes a toll on the guns that chamber it, even ones as tough as a Glock. For a long time, Glock recommended that the recoil spring be changed out every 5,000 rounds on their pistols. But as mountains of anecdotal experience soon proved, this was wholly inadequate in the case of the .40 caliber guns, including the full-size G22. Once that recoil spring starts to wear out, wear on other parts is accelerated, and the cycle of operation starts to break down, leading to a higher likelihood of malfunction. My advice to you? Change out that recoil spring no later than every 3,000 rounds. That's a big loss of service life compared to a 9mm, but those assemblies are cheap, and frequent replacement is cheap insurance to keep your .22 running like it should. There's a lot more to learn about the perks, quirks, and flaws of the Glock 22, but before we move on, take just 2 seconds to click like and subscribe for me. Those 2 clicks will really help out our channel, and by doing so, you won't miss out on any of our upcoming content here on All About Survival. The Glock 22 is still a great choice for defense against large animals. Something that hunters, hikers, and folks who live out in the backcountry should keep in mind is that the 40 S&W has a lot to recommend it for self-defense against large and dangerous animals, including potentially dangerous livestock. Nominally, the 40 S&W launches a significantly heavier bullet than even the heaviest 9mm, and this can result in better performance against heavy-bodied animals like bears, wild boar, and more. This performance can be further increased through the use of specialty boutique rounds, like those available from buffalo boar. Sometimes colloquially referred to as light magnums, these rounds often use specialized projectiles, including hard cast ones, that offer separately deep penetration and weight retention, important factors for performance against big or tough critters. The 10mm auto is a current darling of the shooting public for such duty, but these are even bigger, heavier, and more expensive guns. The 40 S&W is no pushover in this regard, with good load selection, and the Glock 22 is as good a platform as you could hope to own for this cartridge. Early Gen 22s might malfunction more with a WML mounted. Here's a little bit of deep lore that is bound to get people talking in the comments. You'll rarely get biased Glock fanboys to admit this, but the earlier generation Glock 22s often exhibited compromised reliability when they had a weapon-mounted light installed. No, I'm not kidding, and this bears some explanation. I know it sounds hard to believe, even impossible. After all, how could hanging a light off of the dust cover, when it's designed with a rail just for that purpose, impact the reliability of the pistol? You aren't changing any internal parts, and if anything, shouldn't that weight improve reliability by making it easier to control the gun? You'd think so, but it turns out that wasn't the case. Though this issue also wasn't universal with all Glock 22s either. Back in my days, selling guns and equipment to police agencies and interacting with lots of cops in training or competition around Florida, this issue cropped up enough in different departments around the state that it couldn't be overlooked. I'm still not exactly sure how, and I don't know that Glock ever owned up to it, but my suspicion is that installing a WML on the 40 caliber Glocks somehow negatively changed the way the frame flexed during recoil, enough to start causing malfunctions. Believe me, I experienced this myself with enough of these guns, and after trying different mags and different ammo and different shooters and preventative maintenance, that it couldn't be chalked up to anything else. Is this just a neat bit of trivia? No. I'm mentioning it because if you own a Glock 22 and are going to pop a WML on it, you must not assume that your previously reliable pistol is going to stay reliable. Go to the range, test it, and be sure. Gen 5 Glock 22s are better able to withstand the 40 S&W cartridge. Lastly, some really good news for fans of the 40 generally, and the Glock 22 especially. The Glock 22 was updated to Generation 5 specs a few years back, thanks to enough renewed contracts on the pistols that Glock decided it was worth it. I don't think they were going to for a time. But there are some great changes for our favorite full-size 40, and not just the usual battery of Gen 5 upgrades like ambi slide releases, marksman barrel, magazine well, and more. The Gen 5 G22 was redesigned with a heavier, thicker slide, improved recoil spring assembly and guide rod, and a completely updated locking block assembly that now uses a single, thicker pin. Eagle-eyed Glock fans probably spotted that detail right away. What's the result of all this? Arguably, we finally had the 40 caliber Glock we should have had all along. These guns shoot noticeably smoother and require less maintenance than the earlier iterations. If you've got a Gen 5 Glock 22, you can expect that recoil spring to last a full 5,000 rounds with no issues. Happily, the spooky problems that resulted from hanging a WML on the rail have completely vanished. You might not want to shell out full price for a brand new Glock 22 when those tempting police trade-ins are sitting right next to it for $300 less. But if you are in it to win it with the 40 S&W cartridge as your go-to, you can make a great case for leading with one of the Gen 5 guns. And with that, you now know everything that I wish I knew about the Glock 22 before I got down the road with them. Although the 40 S&W is no longer America's go-to pistol round, the Glock 22 is still a fantastic handgun, albeit one with its fair share of pros and cons that you need to understand contextually. Here's what I really want to know. If you're going to buy a Glock 22 today, would you go with an older generation or the current Gen 5 guns? Let me know in the comments. And before you take off, click like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming content. Thanks so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and I will catch you in the next video.